ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्. ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Namaste my dear friends, this is video number 28 on Vivekachudamani of Adi Shankaracharya. This video starts with the topic Signs of a Realized Seer, and it starts with stanza number 426. ब्रह्माकारतया सदा स्थिततया निर्मुक्त बाह्यार्थी रण्यावेदित भोगे भोग कलनो निद्रालो वद बालवत स्वप्नालो कितलो कवच दिदम पश्य वचिल्त दधि रास्ते कश्चित तंतु पुणे फल मुग्ध धन्य से मानो भुवि. On account of constant absorption in Brahma, freed from the sense of reality of external objects, only seemingly enjoying them when offered by others, like one sleepy or like a baby, perceiving the world as one seen in a dream, and recognizing it only now and then. Such a man is indeed rare. He is the enjoyer of the fruits of untold merit and is truly held, blessed, and revered on earth. In this verse, Shankara tries to indicate the matchless joy experienced by a man of realization in the supreme moments of meditation and even during his hours of contact with the world around. He has cleansed his intellect from all disturbing objects of perception of the outer world because his mind is completely identified with Brahmic consciousness, and so no thought disturbances can be there. How will an individual who has risen totally above the lower planes of awareness and has awakened to the higher state live? Will he thereafter have the anxiety of an ordinary mortal to acquire the necessary things of life? Sankara answers, he will therefore enjoy things given to him by others. He himself will no more be anxious to get anything. Whatever is given to him, sometimes forced upon him by others, those objects of utter necessity, he will accept and use. His way of enjoying these objects supplied to him by others unasked is also clearly brought out when the Acharya says that he is like one who is sleeping, nidralu, or like a baby, bala. When, for instance, you sleep in winter and others, seeing the blanket off your back, put it back on you, no doubt. The sleeping body is warmer than before, but you, the sleeper, are not even conscious of it. Similarly, a child is fed by the mother. The child is not conscious that it is being fed regularly and properly. It just takes the feed for granted. There is yet another significance concealed in the choice of these examples. In a sleeping man, there is total cessation of any awareness of the outer world. Similar is the case of a man of realization. He is unconscious of the outer world, and at that time, if others help his physical existence, he remains totally unconscious of the solicitude he has received. The example of a child indicates in its depths that, like a child, a man of realization also has no self consciousness or vanity. A child is not at all aware of itself or its hunger, nor is it aware of the mother feeding it. It has no abhimana of itself. A man of realization is much the same. Now, the question is, does such a man of perfection experience the outer world at all? Yes, he does, now and then. At certain moments, he vaguely recognizes the existence of the world around. Sankara here indicates that the perceived world for the man of perfection is like the world seen in a dream. Thus, the man of steady wisdom does recognize the world around, but at all such moments he is conscious of the non existent illusory nature of the world interpreted by him through the play of his mind and intellect due to his prarabdha. Rare indeed are such men of realization. Such a rare one sits ever merged in the self, extremely relaxed and completely happy as a result of the infinite merits acquired in many lives in the past. Ananta Punya Phala Bhuk. When he thus lives established, when he thus lives established in his divine self, he is the most revered one on the surface of the earth. The last two lines remind us of Sankara's own verse elsewhere, where he says, by such an individual whose mind has melted into the Supreme Brahma, which is the ocean of limitless consciousness, by the very existence of that individual, his tribe has become blessed, his family purified, his mother fulfilled, and the entire world rendered blessed. From the next verse onwards, for about 16 verses, Sankara attempts to give us the hallmarks of a man of perfection. Verse number 427. Sithat parjo yatirayam yah sada anand mashnute brahmanev vini atma nirvikaro viniskaya. That man of steady wisdom, having merged himself in Brahma, enjoys everlasting bliss without modification or activity. Sankara imitates the literary technique adopted by Vyasa in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, where the last 18 verses give us the picture of a man of perfection. He even uses the same term as Vyasa, Sithit Parjana, the man of steady wisdom, that great one who has got steady illumination of knowledge and who has merged his entire inner equipment in the infinite Brahma, enjoys eternal bliss. Such a one is ever changeless and free from all ego prompted selfish activities. He who has the firm knowledge, meaning steady wisdom or understanding of the true nature of the self, reaches the state of perfect tranquility only when his inner equipment has totally dissolved in the pure infinite awareness of the self. Since he is no more identified with his body, mind, and intellect, he is no more sufferer of the destinies of these matter vestures. Therefore, he goes beyond the realm of change and strives to serve all at all times without any trace of selfishness. Verse 428. ब्रह्म ब्रह्मात्मनो शोधितयो भाव गाहिनी निर्विकल्पा च चिन्मात्रा वृत्ति प्रगेति कथ्यते सुस्थिता सा भवेदस्य स्थितप्रज्ञस्य उच्यते. The sort of mental activity which admits only the identity of the self and Brahma, free from all limitations and devoid of duality, which is only concerned with pure knowledge, is called the illumination. One who has this steady illumination is known as a man of steady wisdom. The mind should be purified through steady discrimination, realizing the oneness of the self within and the consciousness that is the substratum for the whole world. In short, the inner equipment should be purified through meditation upon the great statements of the Vedas, the Mahavakyas. With such a purified mind, when an individual experiences nothing but pure intelligence, free from all other distracting thoughts, that pure mind, reveling in total contemplation upon the infinite self, is called a mind emblazoned with illumination. This is the mind that has ended, the mind that has been stilled. He who experiences this condition of mental illumination steadily is called a man of steady wisdom. Inspired moments of wisdom are possible in rare moments of life, during study or when listening to a master, etc. At such moments, an individual gets a glimmer of the higher possibility of the greater consciousness. But rare indeed is the man who is completely established in his identity with the higher. Such men who are established in the higher consciousness are called Sithit Parjana, rooted in consciousness. Numerous doubts may arise about the mental attitude of such an individual and his relationship with the world around. The ideas enumerated in Gita chapter 2 give the picture of a man of perfection. In order to encourage us to undertake the pilgrimage, the teacher gives his post-realization relationship with the objective world around him. He gives us the resurrected view, the reorientation in the higher when one is refitted with wisdom and better understanding. All the following 15 verses of the section are meditation verses. They are not a mere repetition of the Gita verses. The Acharya, as usual, adds a few more strokes unique in themselves to the picture of the man of perfection. Stanza number 429. Yasya sithita भवेत प्रज्ञा यस्सा आनंदो निरंतर है प्रपंचो विस्मृत प्राय स जीवन मुक्त इष्यते. He who has steady wisdom, who experiences endless bliss, who has forgotten the phenomenal world, he is considered a Jivan Mukta. We are all living now in the realm of the PFT, the Jiva identified with the BMI. Jivan Mukti is liberation from the concept of Jivahood. He who is liberated from the concept of the PFT, he who has no identification with his BMI, he is called the liberated one. He is liberated from the lower because of his awakening to the higher. The Jivan Mukta's understanding is firm and steady. His experience of the higher is not temporary or accidental. His realization is not because of any external prop. It is independent of time and place. It is constantly with him, Sahaja. His experience of the bliss and peace within is unbroken, Nirantara, because his mind has been transcended and therefore the sorrows created by the mind are not there. In that condition, the world is exactly like things forgotten, Vismrita Praha, and forgotten things cannot disturb him. Established in Burma, he lives in a state of continuous experience of joy. Such an individual is considered a Jivan Mukta. Stanza 430. Leela Dhirapi Jagarti Jagrati Dvaya Mar Virjite Bodho Nirvasano Yasya Sajivan Mukt Ishyate. He who has merged himself in Brahma yet is alert but without the character characteristics of wakefulness, whose knowledge is free from desire, he is considered a Jivan Mukta. He is a Jivan Mukta whose intellect is merged in Om, the reality. Even the thoughts are thus merged. He is brightly awake. In sleep, when the mind and intellect have become quiet, we are not conscious of the world. On awakening to the higher reality, the mind is as though asleep, but the individual is as though awake. Wakeful sleep, sleepless sleep, consciousness bright and vigilant, but not apprehending any object. Therefore, this state is called objectless awareness. Waking to the reality is the state of waking without its properties. Properties of the waking condition are perceptions and actions. These are not there in realization. It is waking unlike the waking condition. It is pure awareness alone. It is knowledge but not the knowledge of things. It is knowledge without any vasana, any urge or passion. He who is alive to this state is called a Jivan Mukta. Stanza 431. शांत संसार कल नह कलावानपि निष्फलः यस्य चित्तं विनिश्चिन्तं स जीवन मुक्त इष्यते. He whose concern about the world has been stilled, who has a body consisting of parts yet is without parts, whose mind is free from anxiety, he is considered a Jivan Mukta. Thought disturbances create the perception of plurality, cares, sorrows, worries, and anxieties of the pluralistic phenomena. Phenomenal world are perceived by an agitated mind. When the mind is quietened, all these sorrows are also quietened. When we look at a Jivan Mukta, we see his body as made up of parts, heads, limbs, trunk, etc. But he is at all times in the experience of the one homogeneous infinite. Though he is living with his equipments in and through their experiences, he is constantly living the oneness. His thoughts are without any worry, chinta. He is never persecuted by uncontrollable agitations and sorrows. Such an individual is a Jivan Mukta. Stanza 432. वर्तमाने अपि देहे अस्मिच्छाया वदनुर्वर्तिनी अहंता ममता भावो जीवन मुक्तस्य लक्षणम. The absence of the I and mine concepts even in this body which persist like a shadow, this is the indication of a Jivan Mukta. An object is distinguished from others because of its properties. Understanding an object through its properties is called intellection. The sun is understood by its light and heat. Sugar is understood by its sweetness. The characteristics of a Jivan Mukta are given in the following verses. Even though a liberated man lives in his physical, mortal, finite, material body, he has no I-ness and my-ness. He does not consider himself to be the body, nor does he consider the objects belonging to the body as his. Though he expresses through the body, he has no subjective or objective egocentric idea. The body just follows him like a shadow. No one can have egocentric identification with his own shadow. Such too is the man of perfection's relationship with his body. While doing Surya Namaskaras, it is advised that one should look at the sun and then look at one's shadow after every Surya Namaskar. It is traditionally believed in India that by doing so there will be no evil effects of the planets upon one. This ritual is a dramatization of a greater philosophical implication. On realizing the great light of consciousness, your relationship with the body will be the same as that with its shadow. The persecutions of your shadow have no effect upon you. The planetary organization may affect the physical frame and its relationship with the world, but if you have awakened to the supreme reality, it has no effect on you whatsoever. Thus, the relationship of the man of perfection with his body is exactly like your relationship with your shadow. अतीता अनुसंधानम भविष्य विचारणम औदासीन्यमपि प्राप्ते जीवन मुक्तस्य लक्षणम. No thought for the enjoyments of the past, no thought for the future, and indifference even for the present. This is the indication of a Jivan Mukta. A man of realization refuses to think of the failures and regrets of the past. He does not worry about the future and is totally indifferent to the cares of the present. He who has experienced the higher refuges to remember and relive the past. Even a street dog will not eat its own disgorging. What has already been lived in the past The Jivan Mukta does not live again, nor does he get anxious about the future. And in the present, never is he excited. Stanza 434. गुण दोष विशिष्टे स्वभावेन विलक्षणे सर्वत्र समदर्शी शत्वम जीवन मुक्तस्य लक्षणम. Looking everywhere with an equal eye on this world riddled with elements possessing merit and demerit, characteristically merit and demerit, characteristically different one from the other. This is the indication of a Jivan Mukta. On this level of consciousness, everything is experienced without the mind and the intellect. We cannot experience anything unless it is in the world of plurality. Relative experiences alone are available for the M and I. Pure consciousness is that where there is no mind and intellect accompanied by their disturbances. All the experiences of the M and I are an admixture of good and bad, guna dosa visishtha. This world is full of properties, good and bad, merit and demerit, happiness and sorrow. It is by its very nature different from Brahma. In the infinitude, there is no pluralistic world. It is the state where the mind and intellect are transcended. Those who experience this reality look upon the world with an equal eye. Sama darsitavam. Naturally, when one has experienced the absolute in which the entire pluralistic world has merged, and when one looks back at the world, one must necessarily become a samdarsi, a man of equal vision in all situations. The dreamer, while dreaming, experiences the dream world. On waking up, he understands that the dream has merged in the waking knowledge. Supposing with that knowledge he is reintroduced into that dream, how will he react to the dream world? In a similar fashion, a man who has realized the highest lives in the world with his equipments. He also suffers his joys and sorrows, but he has an extra smile on his face, seeing which the world is tempted to put him on the cross. He understands the trick of the mind which gives him hallucinations so glorious in their beauty and ugliness. His equanimity cannot be broken by any happenings around. Stanza 435. इष्ट अनिष्ट अर्थ संप्राप्तो समदर्शित आत्मनि उभयत्रा विकारित्वम जीवन मुक्तस्य लक्षणम. When confronted with things pleasing or painful, to be unperturbed in both cases by maintaining an equal attitude. This is the indication of a Jivan Mukta. Liberated in life is he who lives in the body and yet is not of the body. When happenings, good, bad, or indifferent, reach him, he maintains an equanimous attitude towards them all, since he experiences the Atma in all of them. In all such situations, he sees the substratum only. He is not interested in the matter, vestures, the body, mind, and intellect of individuals. He has the X-ray vision to look through the BMI and their convulsions and to recognize the play of consciousness in every bosom. The man of perfection sees his own self in the consciousness which is playing through all bodies. In circumstances, pleasant or otherwise, he is an avikari. A vicary is one who reacts and brings about modification in his own mind. In our case, when pleasant things come, we are pleased. When things are unpleasant, we become cross. Our mind is turned and ruffled by the circumstances and happenings around. Unruffled, the man of perfection watches the passing parade of the world. Stanza 436. Brahma Anand Saswad da Sakt Chittaya Yatahi Antar Bahirang Vijnanam Jivan Muktasya Lakshanam. Constantly engaged in tasting the bliss of Brahma, a sannyasi entertains no distinctions of within and without. This is the indication of a Jivan Mukta. He is the liberated one who is engrossed in the enjoyment of that Brahmic consciousness which is the experience of bliss, Ananda. There is bliss because the mind has been transcended. Mind is a cancerous ulcer which bleeds out sorrows. As long as you work through the mind, you will suffer. Sanskrit is a language known for the subtlety of its expression. The term Brahmananda Rasa is an example. The man of perfection is extremely addicted to Brahmananda Rasa, the infinite Brahma, infinite bliss, Brahmananda, the essence of infinite bliss, Brahmananda Rasa. The liberated one is addicted to the experience of this essence. He strives to get that experience always. One who is striving to realize is a yati. At such moments of experience of the essence of infinite bliss, which is homogeneous and whole, one knows no inside nor outside. He does not know the outer world of objects, nor does he know the inner world of emotions and thoughts. Stanza number 437. देह इंद्रियादो कर्तव्ये ममा अहम भाव वर्जित है औदासीन्येन यस्तिष्ठेतस्य जीवन मुक्तस्य लक्षणः. Having no idea of I and mine with regard to the body, sense organs, etc., nor to duties, living with an attitude of indifference, this is the indication of a Jivan Mukta. The Jivan Mukta is rid of the ideas of I and mine in the equipments. With regard to the body, mind, and intellect, he does not feel I am these, nor has he the idea that they belong to him. Just as the waker does not have the egocentric feeling, I am the dream body and the dream objects are all mine. In the dream, of course, the dream body is me and the dream wife and children are mine. After waking up, the I-ness of the dream body and the my-ness of the dream objects vanish. Similarly, the individuality and its possessiveness vanish when one has awakened to the higher plane of consciousness. He thereafter lives indifferent to tragedies and comedies that visit the flesh and its mind and intellect. Such an attitude towards his own equipments is the sign of a Jivan Mukta. Stanza 438. Vigyan Atmano Yasya Brahm Bhavah Srute Balat भवबंधन निर्मुक्त स जीवन मुक्त लक्षण है. Deep rooted knowledge that the self is Brahma, affirmed by the scriptures and free from the bondage of transmigration. This is the indication of a Jivan Mukta. He who has understood that the self in him is the self everywhere, aided by the study of the Upanishads, is the liberated one. By a method of systematic analysis, he who has come to experience that the one matrix upon which the entire world is playing about is his very own self is the realized sage. When the identification with the BMI is completely dropped, and when he has risen to the higher plane of consciousness, he suddenly realizes that not only is he the pure consciousness, but the whole universe too is nothing else but the Supreme Self. One who has experienced thus becomes completely liberated from all becoming transmigration. He is not affected by the changes that take place outside him and subjectively within him. Stanza 439. देह इंद्रिय अहम भाव इंदम भाव दनक के यस्य नो भवतः क्वापि से जीवन मुक्त इष्यति. He who has no ego with regard to body, sense organs, etc., nor the concept of this with regard to other things, he is considered a Jivan Mukta. All these verses indicating the Jivan Mukta are not for judging others. Others can never be judged by you, for you will judge them with your mind and intellect, and so you will see things which are not there. All these verses are for self observation. Ordinarily, the common experience of each of us is that we consider ourselves to be the body, the sense organs, the mind, and the intellect. Our individuality, concept, and I-ness are conditioned by our body, our mind, and our intellect. My body convulsions are my convulsions. I am not separate from them. This is our attitude. Our attitude towards things outside the skin is that they are either this or that. Things other than our body, mind, and intellect are all others. He in whom the idea, I, the subject, and this, the object, never comes is a Jivan Mukta. Instead of the distinctions of I and this, he who sees the play of the one consciousness everywhere is the man of realization. Stanza 440. Ne pratyag brahm भद्रम कदापि ब्रह्म सर्गयो प्रज्ञा यो विज्ञानाति स जीवन मुक्त लक्षण है. Through knowledge, he who never distinguishes between the Jiva and Brahma and between the universe and Brahma is indicated as a Jivan Mukta. He never recognizes any distinction between his subjective personality and the essential substance behind the objective world. Not only that, but within himself too, he sees no distinction whatsoever. He sees no distinction between the Lord behind the whole cosmos called Ishvara and the Lord functioning through the body called Jiva. Jiva Ishvara Eka Bhava is the identity between the individual Jiva and the universal self. Patterns are woven into a cloth with colored thread. Flowers, plants, houses, trees, animals, all are woven into patterns. It becomes a world of its own. When a child starts pulling the thread from one end, slowly it comes out and the entire Jagat is liquidated into yards and yards of thread. In the thread, the entire world has become one. Similarly, the whole world is a conscious world, the material of which is this consciousness. He who has unwound all this knows the reality behind the entire cosmos. That reality alone am I, he realizes. To him there are no more distinctions perceivable. Never is there any more a difference between Pratyagamatma and Brahma. Nothing is ever there which is not Brahma. We do not make proper investigation into it, that's all. Thought is the father for all your sorrows, joys, and sufferings. All of them have sprung from the non apprehensions. One who apprehends reality ends all misapprehensions. Never did any difference exist between Brahma and the world which has emerged out of Brahma. He who knows this is liberated in life. Stanza 441. साधु भी पूजे पी माने पी दुर्जनई संभावो भवेदस्य से जीवन मुक्त है लक्षण है. He who feels the same when his body is worshipped by the virtuous or tortured by the wicked is considered a Jivan Mukta. The man of realization does not react either positively or negatively to the external world. If the waking man with his waking consciousness enters the enters the dream, he surely will not react to the dream experiences. He simply enjoys it, whether it be pleasurable or painful in the dream. He knows that it is all himself. So does the man of realization when he lives in the world. Good people worship him with flowers and adore him with prostrations. The wicked persecute him. Under both circumstances, the man of realization maintains the same attitude. Sambhava. He knows that the world outside is but he himself. The glories of the liberated man are endless. How can we enumerate them all? Here Sankara concludes the theme. Stanza 442. Yatra parvishta visya prerita nadi pravaha iv varirasho linanti sanmatratayane vikriya mutpadyantesh yatir vimukta. The sannyasin in whom the sense objects channeled by others are received like flowing rivers into the ocean, producing no change because of his absorption in existence, absolute is truly liberated. A realized man never courts the objects of pleasure. However, when they are thrust upon him by others, they enter and merge into him. They do not add even an iota of happiness, nor do they cause him the least sorrow. Thousands of rivers bring millions and millions of gallons of water to the ocean day in and day out, yet the ocean does not rise even a centimeter. It swallows them all. Similarly, when into the unfathomable depths of the perfected man's wisdom, objects are thrust by the virtuous and the wicked. His mind never emerges into the world to hug them. When the objects and experiences reach him, what happens to them? threats, punishments, persecutions, censures, and worships, commendations, adorations, and praises, they all merge into his bosom and disappear. Infinite consciousness alone remains. They cannot create any activity, for his mind never jumps out. Such an individual is totally liberated from the thraldom of matter. Whatever comes within his knowledge only strengthens his identity with Brahma. The following verse re-emphasizes the thoughts in the previous verses by negative argument. Stanza 443. विज्ञात ब्रह्म तत्वस्य यथा पूर्वम नए संस्कृति अस्ति चेन्नई से विज्ञात ब्रह्म भावो बहिर्मुख. For him who has realized the essence of Brahma, there is no reaching out for sense objects as before. If there is, then he has not realized Brahma. His senses still have an outgoing tendency. For one who has experienced the reality, there is no sansar. Sansar is the phenomenon of going and coming, of repeated births and deaths. If any avenues for egocentric activity have opened up, then the man has not experienced Brahma. Entering sansar is possible only when the mind is turned outward. When the mind is turned outward, reality cannot be experienced. Mind and intellect turn towards objects, emotions, and thoughts only when there are vasanas. One who has realized Brahma has no vasanas. When the mind and intellect are completely turned inward and they discover therein the greatest of all happiness, then there is no sansar for the individual. But in case the seeker is tempted to run after the ever changing sense fields of experiences, it is a clear indication that he has not realized the self fully. Extravertedness is the sign of ignorance. Stanza 444. प्राचीन वासना वेगा दसो संसर्तिति चेत ने सदेकत्व विज्ञान मंदी भवति वासना. It is a assert, it is if it is asserted that still there is attachment for sense objects because of the momentum of past vasanas, the reply is no, for the vasanas get weakened when there is realization of oneness with Brahma. On realization, the vasanas become weak and are not able to manifest and produce any activity. They become like roasted seeds. Roasted seeds look like seeds, but they will not sprout even under extremely favorable conditions. The opponent to the Vedantic thoughts, who is against the Vedantic theory that a man of perfection will have no more vasanas, is now raising his cudgel against Acharya Shankara. Shankara answers in this verse: if your argument is that a man of perfection also will fall into the clutches of sense objects due to the momentum of his old ways of living, we reply that this is impossible. The moment of enlightenment reduces the old vasanas to impotency. Even one who had been the greatest sinner before will not continue sinning after the extraordinary and unique experience of the one self everywhere. To reinforce his argument with a striking illustration, Sankara employs the following verse, stanza 445. अत्यंत कामुक्ष्यापि वृत्तिः कुण्ठति मातरि तथैव ब्रह्मणि ज्ञाते पूर्णानन्दे मनीषिणे. The propensities of even a downright rake are checked in the presence of his mother. So too there are no more any worldly propensities in one who has realized the knowledge of Brahma, the bliss absolute. The vasanas of a man of realization can never express themselves. Sankara gives an example to illustrate how this can be so. A libertine who is an extremely uncontrollable supersensualist cannot indulge in his sensuous actions in the presence of his mother. If, when on the point of committing an immoral act, his father, mother, or teacher were to walk in, then for the time being at least he will desist from committing the act. If you have once tasted the infinite bliss of Brahma, then in the presence of that experience in you, the vasanas, even though they are there, will never manifest. Supposing a man is frustrated with life, so much so that he decides to hang himself when all preparations have been made and he is about to tighten the noose around his neck. If his mother were to call to him affectionately, he stops in the very attempt which probably is forever thwarted. In the presence of his mother, all his determination is checked. Kunti Bhavati. A sadhak trying to lead a noble way of life should mentally have the presence of his ideal or his teacher always before him so that his baser tendencies get weaker and he is always inspired to live the ideal way of life. So I conclude this video at this stage. Next video 29 will start with the topic Prarabdha for a saint and it will start with verse number 446. Thank you for watching this video. Namaskar, my dear friends. Thank you.